I once watched a woman stand in a gas station for 27 minutes, clutching a lottery ticket in one hand and a worn photograph in the other. She wasn't moving, she wasn't speaking. She was just standing there, and I could see her lips moving silently, repeating something over and over. When she finally looked up, there were tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. She walked to the counter, bought her ticket, and left. 3 days later, I saw her picture in the local newspaper. She had won $4.2 million. Now, I'm not telling you this to make you run out and buy a lottery ticket. I'm telling you this because what I witnessed in that gas station was not luck. It was not chance. It was the most precise application of a spiritual law that most people never understand, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She was impressing her subconscious mind with such clarity, such feeling, such absolute conviction that the universe had no choice but to respond. And today, I'm going to teach you the exact affirmation she was using, the one I taught her 3 months before that moment, the one that has changed more lives than I can count. You see, most people approach lottery tickets, opportunities, and wealth itself from a position of desperate hoping. They buy the ticket thinking maybe, possibly, if I'm lucky. And that single word, that energy of maybe, that vibration of hoping against hope, that is precisely what keeps abundance away from you. Your subconscious mind does not respond to maybes. It responds to declarations. It responds to feelings. It responds to the absolute conviction of what already is. When you say, I hope I win, you are actually affirming, I am someone who does not have, I am someone who needs luck because I do not possess the power within myself. And your subconscious mind, which cannot argue, which cannot reason, which only accepts what you impress upon it, says, yes, you are right. You are someone who does not have, and it creates more experiences of not having. But here's what that woman understood, what I taught her, what I'm about to teach you. There is a way to speak to your subconscious mind that aligns every cell in your body, every vibration you emit, every magnetic field around you, with the frequency of wealth already received. Not wealth hoped for, not wealth wished for. Wealth that is already yours in the invisible realm, waiting to take form in the visible world. And when you learn to do this, when you learn to impress your subconscious with this level of certainty, you don't just increase your chances of winning, you fundamentally alter your relationship with abundance itself. You become someone who attracts wealth the way a flower attracts bees, naturally, effortlessly, because it's simply what you are. Now, before I give you this affirmation, before I show you exactly how to use it, I need you to understand something that will change everything you think you know about manifestation, about prayer, about the law of attraction, about wealth itself. Your subconscious mind is not somewhere inside your head. It is not a little room where thoughts go to hibernate. Your subconscious mind is the infinite intelligence that permeates all of life, the creative power that beats your heart without your permission, that grows your hair while you sleep, that heals your wounds without conscious direction. This power is not personal to you. It is universal, infinite, and it flows through you. And here's the key that most people miss. This power does not judge. It does not evaluate. It does not decide if you're worthy or unworthy, deserving or undeserving. It simply accepts the impressions you give it and creates experiences that match those impressions perfectly. Think about this. Right now, your heart is beating. You're not making it beat. You're not concentrating on it, counting the rhythms, forcing the valves to open and close. The infinite intelligence within you is doing that. Your food is being digested, transformed into energy, into cellular material, into the very substance of your body. You're not doing that consciously. The power within you is doing it. New skin cells are being created right now, replacing old ones. Your immune system is fighting off thousands of potential infections without you even knowing they exist. This is the power I'm talking about. This is the subconscious mind. And this same power that creates your body, that orchestrates the symphony of your biological existence, this is the power that creates your circumstances, your opportunities, your wealth, or your poverty. Most people never grasp this. They think their conscious mind, their willpower, their effort is what creates their life. And yes, conscious action is important, but it is not the source. The source is the subconscious impression. The source is the deep conviction you carry about who you are and what is possible for you. A person can work 18 hours a day, hustle and grind and struggle, and if their subconscious mind is impressed with the conviction I am someone who struggles, I am someone for whom money is hard, then no amount of conscious effort will change their circumstances permanently. They might have temporary successes, but they will always return to the level that matches their subconscious conviction. But when you learn to impress your subconscious mind correctly, when you learn to speak its language, which is the language of feeling, of imagery, of conviction, then everything changes. You can work less and accomplish more. Opportunities come to you. People want to help you. Resources appear. And yes, sometimes you buy a lottery ticket and you win, not because you got lucky, but because you became a vibrational match for sudden, abundant, joyful wealth. The woman in the gas station understood this because 3 months before her win, she came to one of my lectures. She was broke. She was tired. She had been working 2 jobs, barely making rent, and she told me she felt cursed. She actually used that word, cursed. She said, no matter how hard I work, money slips through my fingers. I'm tired of struggling. I'm tired of hoping. What do I do? And I looked at her and I said, you stop hoping and you start knowing. You stop asking and you start accepting. You stop treating wealth like something outside of you that might come if you're good enough, lucky enough, worthy enough, and you start recognizing that infinite abundance is the very nature of the universe you live in, and therefore it is your birthright. She looked at me like I was speaking another language, and in a way, I was. Because most people have been conditioned their entire lives to believe in scarcity, in limitation, in the idea that there's not enough, that some people get to be wealthy and others don't, that you have to work hard for every penny, that money doesn't grow on trees, that you should be realistic. These are not truths. These are beliefs. And beliefs are just thoughts you've repeated often enough that your subconscious accepted them as instructions. I told her, your subconscious mind does not care what you've been taught. It does not care what your parents believed about money. It does not care what society tells you is realistic. It only cares about the impression you give it right now, in this moment. And if you can give it a new impression, a feeling of wealth already present, a conviction of abundance already yours, and if you can sustain that impression with enough emotional intensity and repetition, your subconscious will accept it, and your entire world will reorganize itself to match that new conviction. She asked me how, and I gave her an affirmation, not just words to repeat mindlessly, an affirmation designed to bypass the critical, doubting conscious mind and speak directly to the subconscious in its native language. An affirmation that, when repeated correctly, impresses the subconscious mind with such clarity that physical manifestation becomes inevitable. And I told her, before you buy a lottery ticket, before you make any financial decision, before you go to sleep at night, and especially when you wake up in the morning, repeat this affirmation 3 times. Not with your mouth only, but with your heart, with your body, with every ounce of feeling you can summon. Feel it as already true, see it as already done, accept it as already yours. She looked skeptical, but she was also desperate, and desperation sometimes opens the door that comfort keeps locked. She promised to try. And for 3 months, she did exactly as I instructed. Every morning, the moment she opened her eyes, before her conscious mind could flood her with worries and doubts and to-do lists, she repeated the affirmation 3 times with deep feeling. Every night, as she drifted off to sleep, when the conscious mind releases its grip and the subconscious becomes most receptive, she repeated it 3 times. And before she bought her weekly lottery ticket, which she had been buying for years without success, she would stand quietly, close her eyes, and repeat it 3 times with absolute conviction. In the first month, nothing dramatic happened, at least, not on the surface. But she told me later that something inside her began to shift. She stopped feeling anxious about money. She stopped checking her bank account with dread. She started noticing small things. A refund check she had forgotten about, a friend who paid back an old debt, a sale on groceries that saved her $30. Small things, but they added up, and more importantly, they confirmed to her subconscious mind that wealth was beginning to flow. In the second month, bigger things started happening. She got a raise at one of her jobs, unexpected and unsolicited. A neighbor gave her furniture he was going to throw away, saving her hundreds of dollars she had been planning to spend. She found $20 bills twice in 1 week, in coat pockets she hadn't worn in months. She started to feel what I had told her to feel, that she was living in a universe of abundance, that wealth was natural, that she was a magnet for prosperity. By the third month, she had saved more money than she had saved in 5 years, not because she was making dramatically more, but because the energy around her money had changed. She wasn't vibrating lack anymore. She wasn't approaching life from a position of not enough. Her subconscious mind had accepted a new impression, and reality was conforming to it. And then came that day in the gas station. She told me later that as she stood there, photograph in hand, which was a picture of her grandmother who had always believed she was destined for greatness, she felt a certainty she had never felt before. She wasn't hoping to win. She wasn't wishing or praying in the traditional sense. She was feeling as though the wealth was already hers, as though she was already the person who had received it, as though the universe was simply catching up with what her subconscious already knew to be true. She repeated the affirmation 3 times, she bought her ticket, and 3 days later, her life changed forever. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's just one person. That's just luck. That's coincidence. But I have seen this happen over and over again, not always with lottery tickets, because the lottery is just one channel through which abundance can flow, and frankly, it's not even the best channel. I've seen people use this affirmation before job interviews and land positions they were supposedly unqualified for. I've seen people use it before business negotiations and walk away with deals that seemed impossible. I've seen people use it before making investments and watch their money multiply in ways that confound logic. But more than that, I've seen people use this affirmation and experience a fundamental shift in their entire relationship with wealth. They stop being people to whom money is a problem and become people for whom money is a natural flowing resource. They stop struggling and start allowing. They stop chasing and start attracting. And that is what I want for you. Not just a lottery win, though if that's the channel through which abundance comes to you, wonderful. But a complete transformation in your consciousness, a new impression in your subconscious mind that makes wealth inevitable in your experience. Before I give you the affirmation, I need you to understand why it works. Because understanding is what gives you faith, and faith is the feeling of certainty that impresses your subconscious. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is scientific, spiritual law, as reliable as gravity, as predictable as the sunrise. Your subconscious mind is subjective. That means it accepts as true whatever you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. It does not argue. It does not reason. It does not say, but you've been poor your whole life. But your parents were poor. But you don't have a college degree, but the economy is bad. It simply accepts the impression and goes to work creating circumstances that match. Think of your subconscious mind like soil. Soil does not care what seed you plant. It doesn't evaluate the seed and decide if it's worthy of growing. If you plant a tomato seed, you get tomatoes. If you plant poison ivy, you get poison ivy. The soil is neutral, creative, and infinitely powerful, but it only grows what you plant. Your conscious mind chooses the seed. Your subconscious mind is the soil. Your life is the harvest. And most people wonder why they keep harvesting poverty, struggle, and limitation, never realizing they keep planting those seeds with every worried thought, every fearful statement, every conviction of not enough. But today, you are going to plant a different crop. You are going to become conscious of what you're planting. Because the moment you understand this law, everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your destiny. Now, I want to share something with you that changed my entire understanding of prosperity. I was once counseling a woman who came to me absolutely distraught. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything. I work hard. I'm honest, I pray. But money just slips through my fingers. No matter what I do, I can't get ahead." I asked her a simple question. "What do you say to yourself when you look at your bank account?" She didn't hesitate. "I say, there's never enough. I'll never have enough. Money just doesn't stick with me." There it was. The seed. Planted every single day. Watered with emotion, cultivated with repetition. And she wondered why her harvest was always the same. I said to her, "Your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't say, well, she doesn't really mean that. It takes your word as absolute law. When you declare there's never enough, your subconscious says, 'Yes, my queen,' and goes to work making that your reality." We spent the next hour replanting her mental garden. Instead of never enough, we planted, "I am a channel through which God's prosperity flows freely and abundantly." Instead of "money slips through my fingers," we planted, I am a magnet for wealth, and money comes to me easily and effortlessly from expected and unexpected sources. 3 months later, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew. 6 months after that, she was promoted at work with a significant salary increase. 1 year later, she started a side business that became more profitable than her primary job. Coincidence? Luck? No. Law. Immutable. Unwavering. Absolute law. She changed the seeds, and the harvest changed accordingly. This is the power you have right now, sitting wherever you are. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need special credentials. You don't need to be born under the right star. You simply need to understand that your consciousness is the soil, your thoughts are the seeds, and your life is the inevitable harvest. Your subconscious mind doesn't ask if you deserve what you're impressing upon it. It doesn't judge whether your desire is reasonable or possible. It simply accepts what you persistently think and feel as true, then sets about making it your reality. I've watched this principle work in the most unexpected ways. I knew a woman who came to me absolutely convinced she was too old to find love. She was 53, divorced, and bitter about the years she'd wasted in an unhappy marriage. Every conversation we had circled back to the same refrain: "It's too late for me. All the good men are taken. Who would want someone my age?" I asked her a simple question that changed everything. If your subconscious mind is recording these statements as instructions, what kind of life is it creating for you? She sat there in silence. The realization washed over her face like dawn breaking. She had been programming herself for loneliness, rejection, and isolation. Her subconscious was faithfully delivering exactly what she kept affirming. We began the work of reprogramming. Every night before sleep, she would repeat, "I am divinely guided to my perfect partner. Love finds me easily and naturally. I am worthy of deep, passionate connection." At first, these words felt hollow to her. She told me she felt like a fraud speaking them. But I reminded her of something crucial. Your subconscious doesn't care whether you believe the words when you start. It only requires repetition and feeling. So she persisted. Within 3 months, she met a widower at a community garden, a man who'd also convinced himself his romantic life was over. They're married now, traveling the world together, living proof that your subconscious creates according to your dominant mental attitude, not your chronological age. This is the liberating truth I want you to grasp. Nothing external has power over you unless you give it that power through your own consciousness. The economy, your age, your past failures, other people's opinions, these are only obstacles if you accept them as such in your mind. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real limitation and an imagined one. It accepts what you persistently impress upon it. If you say, "I'm too old to change careers," your subconscious says, "Yes, sir," and proceeds to make that true in your experience. If you say, "My best years are behind me," your deeper mind responds, "As you wish," and begins to close doors that were standing wide open. But here's where it gets fascinating. Your subconscious is equally obedient to positive convictions. When you declare, "I am vital, creative, and improving every day," it responds with equal fervor. It begins to reorganize your entire being around this new assumption. Your energy increases, opportunities appear, your very cells respond to this mental directive. I've watched people reverse conditions that doctors called irreversible simply by changing their habitual thinking. The medical profession is beginning to acknowledge what mystics have known for centuries. Consciousness is causative. Your thoughts are not mere shadows flitting through your brain, they are forces, actual powers that shape your flesh, your circumstances, your entire world. Now, let me be clear about something crucial. I'm not suggesting you can ignore reality or pretend problems don't exist. That's not mental science, that's delusion. What I am saying is that your interpretation of reality, your mental attitude toward your circumstances, determines whether those circumstances will dominate you or serve you. Two people can face identical situations and have completely opposite outcomes based solely on their mental approach. One person loses their job and spirals into depression, seeing themselves as a victim of economic forces beyond their control. Another person loses the same job and sees it as liberation, an opportunity to pursue something they've always wanted. Same external event, radically different internal response, completely different results. The person who sees opportunity doesn't just feel better, they actually create better. Their expectant attitude attracts new possibilities. Their enthusiasm opens doors. Their faith in good outcomes magnetizes good outcomes. This isn't mystical thinking, it's practical psychology confirmed by thousands of documented cases. Now let me share something that might surprise you. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual physical experience. This is not speculation. This has been proven in clinical settings, in laboratories, in thousands of therapeutic interventions. When you sit quietly and imagine yourself succeeding, not just daydreaming, but truly feeling the emotions of success, seeing the details, hearing the sounds, experiencing the satisfaction, your subconscious accepts this as instruction. It begins to reorganize your habitual thought patterns around this new reality. I've watched people transform their circumstances through this technique alone. A woman came to me who had been trying to sell her home for 2 years. The real estate market was difficult, yes, but her real problem was internal. Every time a potential buyer came through, she imagined them finding faults, rejecting the property, walking away disappointed. I taught her a simple exercise. Each night before sleep, when the subconscious is most receptive, she would imagine the perfect buyer walking through her home. She would feel their delight at the layout. She would hear them saying, "This is exactly what we've been looking for." She would see herself signing the papers, shaking hands, feeling relief and joy. Within 3 weeks, her home sold at her asking price to a family who said those exact words, "This is exactly what we've been looking for." Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I believe in the lawful operation of mental principles. When you align your inner vision with your desired outcome, the subconscious finds ways to make it manifest. It alerts you to opportunities you would have otherwise missed. It changes your energy, your demeanor, your decisions. People respond to you differently because you're different. This is why affirmations work when done correctly. Most people repeat words mechanically, without feeling, without conviction. That's like planting seeds on concrete and wondering why nothing grows. Your subconscious doesn't respond to empty words. It responds to feeling charged thoughts. When you say, "I am prosperous," while your body is tense with worry, while your mind is screaming, "But look at my bank account," you're sending mixed signals. And mixed signals cancel each other out. I've watched this pattern destroy countless people's manifestation efforts. They sit down morning and evening, dutifully reciting their affirmations, wondering why nothing changes. The words are right, but the feeling is wrong. They're affirming abundance while marinating in lack consciousness. Here's what actually works. When you make your affirmation, you must feel it as already accomplished. Close your eyes. See yourself living that reality now. Feel the relief, the joy, the satisfaction of having it. Let your body relax into that truth. This is what I mean by impressing the subconscious mind. Think of it like this: you wouldn't try to convince someone of something while constantly contradicting yourself, would you? Yet that's exactly what most people do with their subconscious. They say, "I am confident," while replaying every embarrassing moment from their past. They affirm, "I am loved," while cataloging every rejection they've ever experienced. Your subconscious is literal. It accepts what you emotionally accept as true. Not what you wish were true. Not what you hope might someday be true. What you feel is true right now in this moment. This is why I always say, never finish a negative statement. Never affirm anything you don't want to experience. When you say, "I am so tired," you're giving your subconscious an instruction. When you say, "I can't afford this," you're programming limitation. These aren't just casual observations, they're commands to your creative mind. I once worked with a man who couldn't understand why he kept attracting financial problems. Every conversation he had included phrases like, "I'm broke," "money is tight," "I can't catch a break." He thought he was just describing his reality. He didn't realize he was creating it, reinforcing it, cementing it deeper into his experience with every repetition. We changed one thing: his self-talk. Instead of "I'm broke," he learned to say, "Money flows to me easily." Instead of "I can't afford this," he said, "I choose to spend my money elsewhere." Small shifts in language, massive shifts in consciousness. Within 4 months, his income had doubled. Within 8 months, he'd started his own consulting firm. Today, he's financially free. Not because the economy changed, not because he won the lottery, but because he stopped poisoning his subconscious with poverty consciousness and started feeding it abundance. You see, Your subconscious mind doesn't care about your current bank balance. It doesn't know if you have $10 or 10 million. It only knows what you habitually tell it. And it believes every single word without question. When you say, "I'm broke," your subconscious says, "Understood," initiating protocols to keep you broke. When you say, "Money flows to me easily," your subconscious says, "Understood," scanning for opportunities, adjusting perception, opening channels. This isn't mystical nonsense. This is how your brain works. Your reticular activating system, that filter I mentioned earlier, literally searches your environment for evidence that matches your dominant thoughts. Tell yourself you're broke, and you'll notice every bill, every expense, every closed door. Tell yourself money flows easily, and you'll suddenly notice opportunities you walked past 1,000 times before. I want you to do something right now. Think about your relationship with money. What's your automatic response when you see a price tag on something you want? What do you say when someone asks you how business is going? What thoughts run through your mind when bills arrive? Those automatic responses are scripts running in your subconscious, and most of them were installed without your permission, without your awareness, decades ago. The beautiful truth is this: you can rewrite every single one of those scripts, starting today, starting this moment, but you must be vigilant. You must become aware of your inner dialogue, because that dialogue is literally writing your financial future in real time. Let me share a powerful example. A woman once came to me, deeply in debt. She would look at her bills every morning and say out loud, "I'll never get out of this hole. I'm drowning. Money just slips through my fingers." And what happened? More bills, more unexpected expenses. Her car would break down, her rent would increase. The universe kept saying, "Yes, you're right. Here's more evidence of your drowning." Then we changed her script. Instead of looking at those bills with dread, she began to affirm, "I am a channel through which infinite riches flow freely. Money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways." At first, it felt like a lie to her. Her conscious mind rebelled, but she persisted. Every morning, every night, she would repeat these words with feeling, with conviction, as if they were already true. Within 3 months, she received a promotion she hadn't even applied for. A relative paid back a loan she'd written off years ago. She found new clients for her side business seemingly out of nowhere. Was this magic? No. This was the subconscious mind reorganizing her mental world, and through that reorganization, her outer world transformed. You see, your subconscious cannot argue with you. It doesn't judge whether your statements are currently true or false. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it, and then moves heaven and earth to make it your reality. This is why I say your word is your wand. The words you speak to yourself in the privacy of your own mind are the most powerful force in your financial life. Not your education, not your connections, not even your current bank balance. Your dominant mental attitude toward money is the determining factor. And here's what most people miss. You cannot trick your subconscious mind. You can't just mouth empty words. You must feel the truth of what you're affirming. You must generate the emotion of already having what you desire. When you say, "I am wealthy," your subconscious responds to the feeling behind those words. If you're saying them with doubt, with a mocking inner voice saying, "Yeah, right," then you're actually impressing poverty consciousness, not wealth consciousness. This is where most people fail. They repeat affirmations mechanically, like parrots, while their emotional state completely contradicts what they're saying. They sit in their cramped apartment, surrounded by bills, and say, "I am prosperous," while feeling utterly defeated inside. That's not affirmation, that's self-mockery. And your subconscious knows the difference. The subconscious doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to the emotional conviction behind those words. It responds to the feeling tone. When you were a child and your mother said, "I love you," you didn't analyze the grammar of that sentence. You felt the warmth, the safety, the affection in her voice and eyes. That feeling went straight into your subconscious mind and formed your sense of being loved and worthy. The same principle applies now. When you affirm something, you must feel it as real. You must enter into the spirit of the thing. If you're affirming health, you must feel the vitality coursing through your body. If you're affirming success, you must feel the satisfaction of achievement, the confidence of someone who has already succeeded. How do you generate this feeling? Through imagination, through what I call the workshop of the mind. Before you go to sleep at night, when your conscious mind begins to relax and your subconscious becomes more receptive, imagine yourself in the situation you desire. Don't just visualize it like watching a movie screen. Step into the scene, make it three-dimensional, make it real. If you're seeking financial abundance, don't just picture money. Feel what it would feel like to check your bank balance and see the number you desire. Feel the relief, the freedom, the gratitude. Hear yourself saying to a friend, "I'm so grateful, everything has worked out beautifully." Touch the things you would touch. Smell the environment you would be in. Make it sensory. Make it visceral. Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This is a scientific fact. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth waters. The lemon isn't real, but your body responds as if it were. When athletes visualize their performance, their muscles fire in the same sequence as during actual performance. The brain doesn't know the difference between a deeply imagined reality and a physical reality. This is the principle that changes everything. Your subconscious mind accepts what you consistently impress upon it. It doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It simply accepts and then works to make it real in your physical experience. I've watched this happen thousands of times. A woman comes to me and says, "I can never lose weight. It's my genetics. It's my metabolism." And I say to her, "You're absolutely right as long as you keep saying that." Because her subconscious has accepted this as truth, and it will work tirelessly to prove her right. It will slow her metabolism. It will increase her cravings. It will make every diet fail, because the subconscious always wins. But when she changes the impression, when she begins to see herself as healthy, vital, and at her ideal weight, when she feels the reality of it in her imagination before it manifests physically, then her subconscious begins working in the opposite direction. Suddenly, healthy choices feel natural. Exercise becomes enjoyable. The weight comes off effortlessly, because her inner world has changed first. This is not positive thinking. This is not affirmations repeated without feeling. This is about changing the fundamental impression you hold of yourself at the deepest level of mind. You see, most people are trying to change their outer world while maintaining the same inner world. They want more money while feeling poor. They want love while feeling unworthy. They want health while identifying as sick. And then they wonder why nothing changes. You cannot hold one state within and expect to manifest a different state without. The outer world is always, without exception, a reflection of your inner world. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. This is law. This is the way consciousness operates. Let me give you another example that demonstrates this beautifully. There was a man who came to me suffering from chronic pain in his back. He'd seen every doctor, tried every treatment. Nothing worked. I asked him a simple question. "When did the pain begin?" He thought for a moment and said, "About 6 months after my business partner betrayed me." You see, the emotional wound created the physical wound. His subconscious mind, unable to process the feeling of being stabbed in the back emotionally, created a literal pain in his back. The body speaks the language of the mind. I taught him to forgive, not for his partner's sake, but for his own, to release the emotional impression that was creating the physical manifestation. Within weeks, the pain that had plagued him for years began to dissolve. No surgery, no medication, just a change in consciousness. Your subconscious doesn't analyze or judge. It doesn't say, "Well, that sounds unreasonable, so I won't accept it." No, it accepts whatever you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. This is why two people can use the same affirmation. One gets results, the other doesn't. The difference? The depth of feeling, the intensity of belief, the clarity of mental imagery accompanying the words. I once counseled a salesman who'd been struggling for months. His commissions had dropped, his confidence was shattered, and he was on the verge of quitting. "What do you think about before you meet a client?" I asked him. He admitted he imagined rejection. He saw himself stumbling over his presentation, the client looking bored, the deal falling through. No wonder he was failing. He was programming his subconscious for failure with every mental rehearsal. We changed his inner script. Every night before sleep, he would visualize himself walking into that meeting with quiet assurance. He'd see the client's face light up with interest. He'd hear himself speaking with natural confidence, answering questions with ease. He'd feel the handshake that sealed the deal. Within 3 weeks, his sales doubled. Within 2 months, He was the top performer in his company. What changed externally? Nothing. The economy was the same. The clients were the same. His product was the same. What changed was the impression he'd made upon his subconscious mind and therefore, the person he became in those meetings. This is what I mean when I say your subconscious is impersonal. It doesn't care whether you're visualizing success or failure, health or sickness, abundance or poverty. It will faithfully reproduce whatever pattern you've given it. It's like a garden. It will grow whatever seeds you plant, whether they're flowers or weeds. The soil doesn't discriminate. And here's what makes this both thrilling and sobering. Your subconscious is working right now, this very moment. It's not idle. It's not waiting for you to learn the perfect technique or read the right book. It's currently manifesting the dominant thoughts and feelings you've been impressing upon it for days, weeks, months, perhaps years. If you've been anxious about money, dwelling on bills, feeling the contraction of lack, your subconscious is working to create more experiences that match that frequency. This is why so many people feel trapped in cycles they can't seem to break. They're not lazy. They're not cursed. They're simply feeding the wrong mental diet to the most powerful force within them. And here's what makes this even more profound. Your subconscious doesn't judge the merit of what you're impressing upon it. It doesn't say, well, this thought is silly, or this belief doesn't serve you. It simply accepts and acts. Think of a gardener who plants seeds. The soil doesn't interrogate the seed. It doesn't ask, are you sure you want to grow a weed here instead of a rose? The soil simply receives what's planted and begins the process of growth. Your subconscious mind operates with this same impartial intelligence. Plant seeds of doubt, and it grows doubt. Plant seeds of abundance, and it grows abundance. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but Joseph, I've had positive thoughts before. I've tried affirmations. Nothing changed. And I want to address this directly, because this is where most people abandon the journey right before the breakthrough. When you speak an affirmation while your emotional body is vibrating with disbelief, you're not actually impressing anything meaningful upon your subconscious. You're just making noise. Words without feeling are like seeds without water, they cannot take root. The subconscious mind responds to feeling, to emotional conviction, to the lived experience of what you're claiming. This is why I've always emphasized the feeling as the secret. You must feel wealthy to attract wealth. You must feel healthy to manifest health. You must emotionally inhabit the state you wish to experience. And this isn't pretending or lying to yourself, it's recognizing that feeling is the language your subconscious understands. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you want to manifest a new home. You could repeat 1,000 times, I have a beautiful new home, but if every time you say it, you feel the absence of that home, you feel the lack, you feel the current limitation, you're actually reinforcing the opposite of what you want. Instead, you must enter into the feeling of already having that home. Close your eyes and walk through its rooms. Feel the textures. Smell the air. Experience the joy and satisfaction of living there. When you do this with emotional authenticity, you're no longer wishing you're impressing. You're creating a blueprint that your subconscious mind will work tirelessly to manifest in your external reality. This is why affirmations alone often fail. People recite words mechanically, I am wealthy, I am successful, while their inner feeling state screams the opposite. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to words. It responds to feeling. It responds to conviction. If you affirm abundance while feeling lack, you're sending mixed signals, and the dominant emotion will always win. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you want to attract a life partner. You can repeat I am loved 1,000 times, but if beneath those words you feel unworthy, lonely, or desperate, you're actually impressing unworthiness into your subconscious. The words become hollow shells. But if you take time to genuinely feel what it would be like to be cherished, to experience companionship, to know yourself as valuable and worthy of love, that feeling becomes the seed. That's what germinates. This is where most people stumble. They want the technique to be complicated because complicated feels important. But the truth is beautifully simple. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's it. Not the hoping, not the wanting, the feeling of already having it. Your subconscious mind is entirely deductive. It accepts what you impress upon it and proceeds to express it in your world. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question whether you deserve it or whether it's realistic. Those are conscious mind judgments. Your subconscious simply says, you feel successful? then successful you are. Let me show you how. Think of your mind as a garden. Your conscious thoughts are the seeds you plant, but seeds alone don't grow into flowers. They need soil, water, sunlight, the conditions for growth. In the garden of your mind, feeling is that fertile soil. Imagination is the water. Repetition is the sunlight. When you combine all three, you create the ideal conditions for your desires to take root and flourish. Now, I want to address a common concern. But Dr. Murphy, what if I can't feel it? What if my circumstances are so difficult that I can't genuinely imagine having my desire? This is where gentle persistence comes in. You don't have to force it. You don't have to manufacture false emotion. Start small. Can you imagine, just for 60 seconds, what relief would feel like? Can you touch the edge of peace? That's enough to begin. I've seen people start there, in that single minute of imagined relief, and watch it become the doorway to everything they've been seeking. Because here's what happens when you give yourself permission to feel something different. Even briefly, you prove to your own nervous system that the feeling exists, that it's available, that it's not some distant fantasy reserved for other people or other circumstances. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This isn't poetry. This is neuroscience meeting ancient wisdom. When you imagine relief with enough sensory detail, when you feel your shoulders drop, when you sense the exhale that goes all the way down to your belly, when you notice the softness that enters your face, your body begins to respond. It starts to remember what safety feels like. And here's where the transformation accelerates. Most people are walking around with their entire being clenched around their problems. Every muscle, every thought, every breath is tight with resistance. This shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening to me? I can't handle this. And that clenching, that constant contraction, it cuts you off from the very intelligence that could guide you through. When you soften, even slightly, you create space. And in that space, something remarkable occurs. Solutions that were invisible suddenly become obvious. Opportunities you walked past 100 times now catch your attention. People appear, or they were always there, but now you're finally able to see them. The universe hasn't changed. Your frequency has. You've heard people talk about raising your vibration. Let me translate that into something concrete. Your emotional state is literally a broadcast. When you're vibrating at the frequency of fear, you perceive a fearful world. You notice threats. You interpret ambiguous situations as dangerous. You attract circumstances and people who match that frequency. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because you're tuned to that channel. Change the channel, and everything changes. I worked with a woman who'd been in a legal battle for 3 years. 3 years of letters from attorneys, of sleepless nights, of every conversation somehow circling back to this lawsuit. She came to me depleted, asking how to manifest the outcome she wanted, and I told her something that made her angry at first. I said, "Stop trying to control the outcome. Start changing how you feel right now." She protested. Of course. The circumstances were real. The threat was real. How could she just feel differently? Because she understood something that most people never grasp. Your feelings don't come from your circumstances. They come from your thoughts about your circumstances. The eviction notice didn't make her feel afraid. Her interpretation of what that notice meant made her feel afraid. And the moment she changed her interpretation, the feeling changed instantly. This is one of the most liberating truths you'll ever encounter. Your emotions are not caused by external events. They're caused by the meaning you assign to those events. 2 people lose their job on the same day. One falls into depression, convinced their life is over. The other feels liberated, seeing it as the universe pushing them towards something better. Same circumstance, completely different emotional experience. What's the difference? The story they tell themselves about what happened. You've been taught that you need to change your circumstances before you can change your feelings. That's backwards. Change your feelings, and your circumstances will follow. I know this seems counterintuitive. Everything in your external world seems so solid, so real, so unchangeable, and your feelings seem like automatic responses to that solid reality. But consider this. Have you ever been worried about something? Absolutely convinced disaster was coming, only to have it turn out perfectly fine? In that moment of relief, did your circumstances change? Or did your thought about them change? You've already experienced this principle. You just haven't recognized it consciously or learned to use it deliberately. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. This is why you can watch a movie and cry, even though you know it's fiction. This is why you can worry about something that hasn't happened and feel genuine anxiety. If imagination can make you feel bad about things that haven't happened, it can certainly make you feel good about things you desire as if they already have happened. This is not delusion. This is not pretending. This is understanding how your mind actually works, and using that knowledge constructively. When Sarah chose to feel relief before the money appeared, she wasn't being naive or foolish. She was being scientifically precise about the laws of mind. Now, I want to address something that troubles many people when they first encounter these principles. They say, "But Murphy, I've tried feeling good about what I want, I've tried visualizing, nothing happened. This doesn't work for me." When I hear this, I always ask the same question: how long did you persist? And more importantly, what were you really feeling underneath the surface attempt? You see, the subconscious mind is like a garden. If you plant a seed today, you don't dig it up tomorrow to see if it's growing. You don't stand over it demanding results. You water it, you trust the process, and you allow nature to do its work. The seed has intelligence within it. Your role is simply to provide the right conditions. Most people give up too soon. They make one or two attempts, and when they don't see immediate external results, they conclude the method doesn't work. But what they've actually done is planted a seed and then immediately planted a dozen seeds of doubt right on top of it. Let me share with you the case of Michael, a man who came to one of my lectures absolutely desperate. He had been trying to demonstrate prosperity for months. He'd been affirming, visualizing, doing everything he thought was right, yet his bank account remained unchanged. He was ready to give up entirely. I asked him to describe exactly what he did each day. He told me he would sit quietly, visualize money coming to him, and affirm abundance. It all sounded correct. Then I asked the crucial question: what do you feel right after you finish your visualization? His face changed. He admitted that immediately after visualizing, he would feel a wave of sadness because his actual circumstances hadn't changed yet. He would look at his bills and feel that familiar knot of anxiety. He would wonder if any of this mental stuff really worked. There was the problem, crystal clear. He was planting seeds of abundance in the morning and pouring poison on them all day long. His conscious affirmations were being completely contradicted by his habitual emotional responses. I explained to him that the feeling after your mental work is more important than the mental work itself. If your visualization leaves you feeling lack, you're impressing lack upon your subconscious. If your affirmation is followed by doubt, you're affirming doubt. He looked at me and said, "Dr. Murphy, I think I've been doing this all wrong. I visualize having money, but afterward I feel anxious about my bills." I told him, "Then you're not really impressing wealth, you're impressing anxiety. Your subconscious doesn't care about the pictures you make. It cares about the feeling you sustain. This is why I've always taught that the silence after your prayer is sacred. That moment when you've finished your affirmation, your visualization, your mental work, that's when your subconscious is most receptive. If you leap immediately back into worry, you've canceled out everything. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every 5 minutes to check if it's growing. You plant it with confidence, cover it with soil, water it, and then you leave it alone. You trust the process. Your subconscious mind is the same way. You impress your desire upon it, you feel the reality of it, and then you let it work. But most people can't leave it alone. They plant the seed and immediately start digging it up with doubt. Is it working? When will it happen? What if it doesn't work? Every doubt is you uprooting what you just planted. I remember a woman who came to my lectures for months. She had a chronic health condition, and she would affirm perfect health every single day, but nothing changed. She asked me why. I said, "What do you feel after you affirm your health?" She admitted, "I feel a little hopeful, but then I look at my body and feel discouraged." There it was. She was affirming health for 2 minutes and confirming sickness for the other 23 hours and 58 minutes of the day. Your subconscious is always listening. It records the dominant impression, not the occasional one. I gave her a new approach. I told her, after you affirm perfect health, sit quietly and feel thankful. Don't analyze whether it's working. Don't inspect your body for signs of change. Just rest in gratitude, as if your prayer has already been heard because it has. She did this faithfully. Within weeks, she noticed improvements. Within months, her condition had dramatically changed. What shifted wasn't the affirmation itself, it was the state she maintained afterward. This is the principle that most people miss entirely. They say the words, then spend the rest of their day contradicting them. They affirm abundance while feeling poverty. They declare health while imagining disease. They speak of love while harboring resentment. The subconscious doesn't respond to the words you speak for 30 seconds. It responds to the feeling tone you maintain for hours. It responds to the mental atmosphere you create throughout your day. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't plant it, then immediately dig it up to check if it's growing. You don't pour acid on the soil and expect a flower to bloom. Yet this is precisely what people do with their affirmations. They plant the seed of their desire, then immediately flood their mind with doubt, fear, and contradiction. I've watched countless people sabotage themselves this way. They'll do their morning affirmations with great enthusiasm, then spend the entire day in conversations that contradict everything they affirmed. They'll declare their faith in divine abundance, then complain about bills for the next 6 hours. They wonder why their affirmations don't work, never realizing they're watering weeds instead of their garden. Here's what I learned from the most successful practitioners. After making your affirmation, you must guard your mental state like a sacred temple, not through strain or effort, but through gentle, persistent awareness. When contradictory thoughts arise, and they will, you don't fight them. You simply refuse to energize them. You return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Not the words, the feeling, the sense of naturalness, the quiet knowing that it is already done. This is why I often recommend shorter, more frequent sessions rather than long, exhausting ones. 5 minutes of genuine feeling immersion is worth more than an hour of mechanical repetition. And throughout your day, brief moments of return, a few seconds of reconnecting with that state, these compound into tremendous power. Now, here's what most people never consider. The power of gratitude as a technique for impressing the subconscious. When you give thanks for something before it appears in your physical reality, you are making one of the most powerful statements your subconscious mind can receive. You're declaring, with absolute conviction, that the thing already exists. Think about this carefully. You don't give thanks for something you hope might happen someday. You give thanks for something that has been given, something you've received. When you say thank you from the depths of your heart for your healing, for your prosperity, for your happiness, even though your senses tell you otherwise, you are affirming to your subconscious that it is done. I've watched people transform their entire lives through this simple practice. One woman came to me after years of financial struggle. I taught her to end every meditation session with genuine gratitude for her prosperity. Not, I hope to be prosperous, or please make me prosperous, but thank you for my prosperity. Thank you for this abundance. Within weeks, opportunities began appearing that had been invisible to her before. Why? Because her subconscious, impressed with the feeling of already having received, began to orchestrate circumstances to match that inner conviction. The ancient scriptures understood this principle perfectly. Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Not believe that you will receive it, believe that you have received it. Present tense. Already accomplished. This is the secret that mystics throughout the ages have taught in various forms. Your subconscious responds to the tense of your feeling. When you feel, I will be healthy someday, you're impressing the subconscious with perpetual future, which means perpetual delay. When you feel I am healthy now, even if your body seems to contradict this, you're impressing present reality, and the subconscious works to make the outer match the inner. This is why affirmations work, not because the words themselves have power, but because when spoken with feeling and conviction, they impress a new pattern on the subconscious mind. The subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Are you sure?" It accepts what you feel to be true and begins to manifest it in your experience. But here's where most people stumble. They speak the words without the feeling. They say, I am prosperous, while feeling poor. They declare, I am confident, while trembling inside. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The subconscious isn't moved by hollow repetition. It responds to the emotional conviction behind the words. I've watched people transform their entire lives by changing the feeling tone of their inner conversations. A woman who felt herself to be unloved and unwanted began to assume the feeling of being cherished and valued. She didn't wait for someone to make her feel this way, she generated the feeling herself, from within. Within weeks, her relationships began to shift. People who had ignored her suddenly took interest. Old friends reached out. And eventually, she met someone who reflected back to her the love she had been feeling for herself. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't luck. This was law, the law of assumption, the law of subconscious manifestation. What you feel yourself to be, you become. What you assume to be true in consciousness eventually externalizes as fact in your world. Now, I want you to think about the feeling state you've been living in. Not what you've been saying, not what you've been thinking intellectually, but what you've been feeling. Have you been feeling worried about money? Then you've been impressing lack upon your subconscious. Have you been feeling anxious about your health? Then you've been programming illness. Have you been feeling uncertain about your future? Then you've been creating confusion and delay. But here's the beautiful truth. You can change the feeling right now. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for circumstances to improve. You can, in this very moment, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. You can feel grateful, even before you see the evidence. You can feel confident, even before the outcome is certain. You can feel loved, abundant, healthy, successful right now, in consciousness, because consciousness precedes manifestation. Always. The feeling is the secret. Not the affirmation alone. Not the visualization alone. Not the hoping or wishing, but the feeling times that it is already done. You see, many people approach the spiritual law backwards. They say, I'll be happy when I get the money. I'll feel peaceful when the situation resolves. I'll feel worthy when someone validates me. But this is to misunderstand the entire process. You must be what you wish to have asterisk. You must feel the fulfillment before the world reflects it back to you. This is not pretending. This is not self-deception. This is recognizing that your consciousness is the only reality you ever truly experience. Right now, in this moment, you are not experiencing your bank account. You are experiencing your thought times about your bank account. You are not experiencing tomorrow's interview. You are experiencing your feeling times about tomorrow's interview. And if you can change the thought, change the feeling, you change the experience. Not someday. Now. Let me illustrate this with something very practical. Suppose you desire a financial breakthrough. Most people spend their days rehearsing lack. They check their balance and feel anxious. They see a bill and feel burdened. They think about their desire and immediately feel the gap between where they are and where they want to be. What are they doing? They are feeling poverty. They are living in poverty consciousness, regardless of what their lips may affirm. But you can reverse this today. Not by denying facts, but by dwelling in a different state. Close your eyes for a moment throughout your day and feel what it would be like if your financial worries were completely resolved. Not someday, now. What would that feel like in your body? Perhaps a loosening in your chest, a sense of ease, a quiet confidence, a freedom to think about other things. Dwell there, return to that feeling again and again. Let it become familiar, let it become your inner atmosphere. This is not avoiding responsibility or action, this is creating the consciousness from which inspired, effective action flows naturally. The same principle applies to health, to relationships, to any desire of your heart. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live from the end, not toward it. Act inwardly as though it is already true, and watch as the outer world rearranges itself to match your inner conviction. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not question whether you deserve your desire or whether it's realistic. It simply accepts what you impress upon it. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are not engaging in fantasy. You are activating a spiritual law as precise as the law of gravity. Many people fail because they try to convince their subconscious mind through repetition alone, chanting affirmations mechanically while feeling doubtful inside. But the subconscious responds to feeling, not words. You can say, I am prosperous 1,000 times, but if you feel poor while saying it, you are impressing poverty upon your subconscious. Let me illustrate this with a woman who came to me desperate for financial relief. She was drowning in debt, working 2 jobs, exhausted and afraid. I asked her to stop focusing on the bills, stop rehearsing her lack, and instead to spend 10 minutes each night before sleep feeling the way she would feel if she were financially secure. She protested at first. But the bills are real. I can't just ignore them. I explained that I wasn't asking her to ignore practical responsibilities, but to stop giving them emotional power. Every time she worried, she was praying for more lack. Every time she felt afraid, she was ordering more fear from the universe. She began practicing. Each night, she would lie in bed and imagine opening her bank statement and feeling relief and gratitude. She didn't force specific numbers. She simply felt the emotional tone of financial security, the peace of knowing she had more than enough. Within 3 weeks, her company offered her a position she hadn't applied for, one with significantly higher pay. Within 2 months, an old debt she thought was lost forever was repaid to her unexpectedly. The outer world reflected her inner shift because she had changed the feeling from which she was living. This is not magic. This is mental law. When you change your inner state, you change the signal you're broadcasting. And the world must respond accordingly because consciousness is the only reality. You see, most people are trying to change their lives from the outside in. They're trying to manipulate circumstances, control other people, force outcomes, and it exhausts them, it depletes them, because they're working against the fundamental law of mind. But when you understand this principle, when you really grasp it, you realize that all change begins within. You stop trying to push the river. You stop trying to make things happen through willpower alone. Instead, you go to the source. You change the inner conviction, and the outer world rearranges itself to match. I've seen this happen thousands of times. A woman comes to me and says, "Dr. Murphy, I need more money. I'm drowning in debt. What do I do?" And I tell her, you don't need to do anything in the outer world first. You need to change your relationship with money in your mind. You need to stop affirming poverty and start affirming abundance. She looks at me skeptically. "But the bills are real," she says. "The debt collectors are real. How can just thinking differently change that?" And I explain, the bills are effects, not causes. They are the outpicturing of a consciousness of lack. Change the consciousness, and you change the effect. It's law. It's not magic or wishful thinking, it's the mechanical operation of mind. So she begins. Every day she affirms, "I am a child of the infinite. Wealth flows to me freely and abundantly. I am prosperous, secure, and divinely guided in all financial matters." At first, nothing seems to happen. The bills keep coming. The phone keeps ringing. But she persists. She doesn't give power to the outer conditions. She remains faithful to her inner vision. And then, gradually, things begin to shift. An unexpected check arrives, an old debt is forgiven. A new opportunity appears that she would have missed before because her consciousness wasn't tuned to receive it. Within 6 months, her entire financial situation has transformed, not through struggle, not through force, but through the natural outworking of an inner change. This is how it works. This is always how it works. Your outer world is the faithful servant of your inner world. When you change your beliefs, your assumptions, your habitual mental patterns, the circumstances of your life must reorganize themselves to correspond. This isn't theory. This isn't wishful thinking. This is spiritual law, as reliable as the law of gravity. I've watched it work in my own life, and I've witnessed it transform the lives of thousands who have applied these principles with faith and persistence. Let me share something with you that happened just last year. A woman came to me, deeply troubled. She had been estranged from her daughter for 7 years. 7 years of silence, of pain, of walls built so high she couldn't see over them. She told me, "Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything. I've written letters. I've called. She won't respond. It's hopeless." I said to her what I say to you now. Nothing is hopeless when you understand the power of your subconscious mind. I instructed her to stop trying to change her daughter. Stop trying to force reconciliation through outer means. Instead, I told her to go within. Every night before sleep, she was to imagine a conversation with her daughter. Not a forced conversation, not an awkward reunion, but a natural, loving exchange. She was to see her daughter's face filled with warmth. She was to hear her daughter's voice saying words of love and forgiveness. She was to feel the embrace, to experience the joy of restored relationship as though it were happening right now. For 3 months, she did this faithfully, every single night. At first, it felt artificial. Her conscious mind protested. This isn't real. She still hasn't called. But she persisted. She made it real in consciousness first. And then one afternoon, Completely unexpectedly, her phone rang. It was her daughter. "Mom," she said. "I don't know why, but I've been thinking about you constantly lately. I want to see you. Can we talk?" Within 2 weeks, they had reconciled completely. The daughter later told her, "Something shifted in me. I can't explain it, but suddenly all the anger just dissolved, and I missed you so much." What happened? The mother changed her inner conviction. She stopped dwelling on separation and began dwelling on reconciliation. Her subconscious mind, which is connected to the subconscious mind of all humanity, went to work. It influenced her daughter in ways the conscious mind cannot understand. It arranged circumstances. It softened hearts. It brought about the outer manifestation of the inner belief. This is not manipulation. This is not control. This is the recognition that we are all connected at the deepest level, and when you change your consciousness about another person, when you see them in their divine perfection rather than their human limitation, you release them to express that perfection. Your relationships, your health, your career, your finances, every area of your life is subject to this same principle. The moment you change your inner talking, your inner imagery, your inner conviction, you set in motion forces that must externalize as changed conditions. I want you to understand something profound. You are not changing the external world through struggle or force. You are changing it through assumption. You are changing it through the silent recognition of what is already true in the realm of possibility. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you walk as though you already are what you desire to be, you are not pretending, you are actually occupying that state in consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. Let me give you a simple test. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to notice how you feel about yourself. Not what you think about yourself, but how you times feel asterisk. Are you carrying a subtle sense of lack? A feeling that something is missing? A vague dissatisfaction that follows you like a shadow? That feeling is your actual state of consciousness, and it will reproduce itself in your world with mathematical precision. Now imagine just for a moment that everything you've ever wanted has already come to pass. You don't have to see the details. Just feel the relief. Feel the satisfaction. Feel the quiet inner knowing that it is done. That shift in feeling, however brief, is a shift in state. And if you could sustain that shift, if you could live from that assumption consistently, your outer world would have no choice but to conform. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking is often just surface noise affirmations spoken while the deeper conviction remains unchanged. What I'm describing goes much deeper. It's a transformation of the foundational feeling from which you operate. It's dwelling in the end result so completely that you stop asking when or how. You simply know. Many people fail because they assume the state for a moment, then immediately return to their habitual consciousness. They feel wealthy for 5 minutes during meditation, then spend the rest of the day feeling poor. They imagine themselves healthy, then return to identifying with their symptoms. They visualize love, then continue their internal conversation of loneliness. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot assume two states simultaneously and expect clarity of manifestation. Your subconscious mind does not judge the message you give it, it simply receives and executes. When you pray for health while simultaneously telling yourself that recovery is impossible, you are not demonstrating faith. You are demonstrating confusion, and confusion produces confusion. The Bible speaks clearly on this matter. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. You are either moving toward your desire or away from it. There is no neutral ground in consciousness. Every thought is a vote. Every feeling is a declaration. You are always manifesting something. I once counseled a woman who prayed for abundance every morning but spent her afternoons complaining about bills, debt, and the impossibility of getting ahead. She came to me bewildered. Why wasn't prayer working? I asked her a simple question. How many hours a day do you spend feeling prosperous, and how many hours do you spend feeling poor? She paused. Then she understood. Her prayer was 1 minute long. Her complaint was constant. She was fertilizing weeds and wondering why flowers weren't growing. You must become vigilant over the habitual patterns of your internal dialogue. Not obsessive, vigilant. There is a difference. Vigilance is calm awareness. It is the gentle correcting of the mind when it drifts toward fear, doubt, or limitation. Most people live on autopilot, recycling yesterday's thoughts into today's experience and tomorrow's disappointment. Break the cycle, interrupt the pattern. Choose again. When a thought of lack arises, do not wage war against it. Do not resist it with violence. Simply replace it. This is the art of mental discipline. You do not fight darkness, you turn on the light. You do not battle a negative thought, you introduce a higher one. The lower cannot survive in the presence of the higher. It dissolves naturally, effortlessly, the moment you lift your consciousness to a truer state. This is the principle of displacement. You displace fear with faith, you displace doubt with certainty, you displace illness with the feeling of perfect health. And you do this not through force, but through substitution, through gently, persistently, lovingly replacing the old with the new. I have seen people torture themselves trying to not think about their problems. They clench their minds, they resist, they push away, and in doing so, they magnify the very thing they're trying to escape. What you resist persists. What you fight, you energize. But what you replace simply fades. Let me give you an image. Imagine a room filled with darkness. You can stand in that room and curse the darkness. You can analyze it, fear it, struggle against it for hours. Or you can simply light a candle. The moment you do, the darkness is gone. It doesn't fight back. It doesn't argue. It simply ceases to be, because light and darkness cannot occupy the same space. Your mind is that room, and your dominant thought is the light you bring into it. So when worry creeps in, and it will, because you are human, do not scold yourself. Do not feel you have failed. Simply recognize it as an old habit, thank it for trying to protect you, and then turn your attention to what you truly desire. Feel the relief, feel the solution, feel the joy of the answered prayer. This is not pretending. This is not denial. This is alignment. You are aligning your inner state with the truth of what already exists in the infinite intelligence that governs all things. You are tuning your receiver to the station you wish to hear. And here is what I want you to understand deeply. In the very core of your being, you do not need to know how times your desire will come to pass. You do not need to see the entire staircase. You only need to take the first step, which is to accept in consciousness that it is already done. The subconscious mind, you see, is the builder of the body. It operates your heart, your lungs, your digestive system, all without your conscious interference. It knows how to heal a cut on your finger, how to mend a broken bone. You do not tell it how times to do these things. You simply trust that it will. The same principle applies to your desires. When you impress upon your subconscious mind the reality of your wish fulfilled, it begins immediately to work out the solution. It will arrange circumstances, move people, orchestrate events, all in ways that your finite conscious mind could never conceive. I have seen this demonstrated countless times. A woman came to me once, desperate for employment. She had been rejected from every position she applied for. Her confidence was shattered. I said to her, "Stop begging, stop pleading with your subconscious mind as if you were asking a reluctant stranger for a favor. Instead, assume the feeling of already being gainfully employed. What would it feel like to receive that regular paycheck? To be valued at your workplace? To go to bed at night knowing you have meaningful work?" She began to practice this nightly. She would sit quietly, close her eyes, and imagine herself leaving work at the end of a satisfying day. She felt the relief, the gratitude, the security. Within 2 weeks, she received a phone call from a company she had interviewed with months prior. A position had suddenly opened, and they wanted her immediately. Did she know how times this would happen? No. Did she need to? No. Her responsibility was simply to accept the end result in consciousness. The subconscious mind took care of the means. This is the secret that so many miss. They try to figure out every step, every detail, every mechanism. They exhaust themselves with planning and scheming. But you cannot manipulate the infinite intelligence of your subconscious mind with your limited conscious reasoning. Your role is to choose the end, to define what you want, to feel it as real, then, to release it completely into the care of your deeper mind, trusting absolutely that it will bring it to pass in its own way and time. This is the secret that so many miss. They affirm, they visualize, they do everything right, and then they constantly check to see if it's working. They look at their bank account every hour. They weigh themselves 3 times a day. They refresh their inbox obsessively, wondering when the answer will come. And in doing so, they're actually affirming the opposite of what they want. They're saying to their subconscious, "I don't really believe it's done. I'm still waiting." I'm still separate from my good. But when you truly impress your subconscious mind, when you plant that seed deeply, there's a natural feeling of completion, a sense of it is done. You don't need to dig up the seed every day to see if it's sprouting. You planted it. You watered it with feeling. Now you trust the process. This doesn't mean you become passive, not at all. The subconscious will prompt you to take certain actions, to move in certain directions. You'll feel inspired to make a phone call, to apply for a position, to speak to a certain person. These aren't forced actions, they flow naturally from the state of consciousness you've established. I've seen this pattern repeat itself thousands of times. Someone comes to me in desperation. They've tried everything. Nothing has worked. And when I listen carefully, I discover the same thing. They've never truly given their desire over to the deeper mind. They've held it tightly in their conscious grip, trying to control every detail of how and when it should manifest. The moment they learn to let go, to trust, to live from the end, everything shifts. Not because the universe suddenly decided to be kind to them, but because they finally aligned their conscious and subconscious minds in the same direction. Your subconscious mind is always working. Right now, as you hear these words, it's working. It never sleeps. It never takes a holiday. The question is not whether it's working, the question is, what are you giving it to work with? Are you feeding it worry, doubt, and fear? Are you impressing upon it images of failure and lack? Or are you consciously, deliberately directing it toward the fulfillment of your heart's desire? This is your choice, this is your power, and this is your responsibility. When you truly understand this responsibility, you realize that complaining is just another form of negative creation. Every complaint is an affirmation of what you don't want. Every time you say, "I can't afford this," you are instructing your subconscious mind to keep you in poverty. Every time you say, "I'm always sick," you are programming your body for illness. Every time you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," you are blocking the good that is trying to come into your life. Your words are not just sounds that disappear into the air. They are commands, they are instructions, they are creative forces that shape your experience. This is why the wise person guards their speech as carefully as a miser guards their gold. This is why those who understand the law speak only of what they want, never of what they fear. But here is something remarkable that happens when you truly accept this responsibility. You become free. Yes, free. Because if you created your current situation, then you can create a different one. If your thoughts brought you here, then different thoughts can take you somewhere else. The very same power that created lack can create abundance. The very same mind that generated fear can generate courage. The very same imagination that pictured failure can picture success. This is not a burden. This is liberation. This is the greatest gift you could ever receive. The knowledge that you are not a victim, that you are not powerless, that you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are the creator. You are the artist. You are the architect of your own experience. And so we come full circle. We return to where we began, but now with understanding. The power within you is real. It is infinite. It is available right now, in this very moment. It does not require years of study, though study deepens understanding. It does not require special rituals, though disciplined practice yields results. It does not require perfect circumstances, because it creates circumstances. All it requires is your belief, your acceptance, your cooperation, your willingness to claim what is already yours. The question that remains is simple: will you use it?